So, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the first ever Amalgam Network event. This event is in collaboration with Emerald Network, and this is for Black History Month. So today we have the presentation for Black Muslim Queens by Ismael Lea. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with Ismael, but I'm your host today, Bilkisu Ibrahim, and the format will be a 15-minute presentation followed by Q&A. So feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go along, inshallah. So I'll briefly introduce Ismael before I hand over to him. So Ismael Lea is an experienced cultural youth and community consultant. He has been working in the field of Black history research, anti-youth crime intervention, Black community interfaith and resettlement for over 10 years. He's the founder of the Salam Project that works primarily in London and Manchester. His supportive team works predominantly in Black, African, Afro-Caribbean communities around the UK. His Black Muslim Queens of Islam presentation is dedicated to his wife, daughter, and Black Muslim women worldwide, so they can understand their magnificent contribution to the world, past, present, and future. He believes that Black history is important for empowering communities with cultural identity and educating other communities about the contributions of Black people to the world, while society and media tends to do otherwise, as we all know. He's actively working in partnership with numerous statutory organisations, community organisations, and youth initiatives around the UK. He strongly believes in promoting aspirations, achievement, and constructive solutions to our youth to empower communities. He works closely with Faiths Forum, United, and Ulster Inc. I hope I pronounced those right. Yeah. And supporting the next generation of grassroots problem solvers in urban communities. So thank you so much again, Ismael, for...
Thank you for having me, Sister Belkis.
No worries. So whenever you're ready, you're free to start your presentation, inshallah.
Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. And I'd like to say, may Allah bless the Amalgam Network for their great work, and may Allah continue to bless and support them, because their work is much needed for the Ummah and for our sisters of African and Afro-Caribbean heritage in the UK, inshallah. Thank you, Sister Belkis, for reaching out. I really appreciate the invitation. And my name is Ismael Lea, as a sister gave me a lovely introduction there. This presentation is dedicated to my wife and to my daughter. I'll just give you a brief overview and the reason why I've done this presentation. My wife is of Nigerian heritage. I'm of Jamaican heritage. And my daughter went to school and she noticed there was a rift between the Asian Muslims and the Black community Christian girls in her school. And there were a bit of rifts, and because her being someone of African, Afro-Caribbean heritage and being a Muslim, she was constantly find herself in the middle of both. So she would constantly come home and ask questions. So this was based around that scenario. Normally we get told, when we're talking about women, especially women of African heritage in Islam, when I go to talks and lectures of all sects, denominations, I haven't seen any that has said anything any different. Normally when they depict Black women, Black Muslim women, it's always as slaves, and that's it. They've made no contribution to Islam. But as a person who does research and who likes to read, I was very amazed and very thankful to Allah that I found much different. So we know that the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was born in Arabia, the Arabs had a tradition whereby when the babies were newly born, that they would go with a wet nurse and go and stay in the desert. So at the time of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was a tradition among the Quraysh Arabs whereby when their sons or daughters, mainly sons, were born, their sons were taken into the desert with a wet nurse who would look after them, sometimes 2 years, 3 years or more. And when they go off in the desert, they would be looked after by the wet nurse, and the wet nurse would also feed them, look after them. And the wet nurse for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an Ethiopian sister called Sister Halima. And even though, as we know, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam later became an orphan, but even in Prophet Muhammad's, when he became a prophet, and even before he was a prophet, he always looked on Sister Halima as his mother, and he treated her as such. Whenever she passed him by, whenever she came to visit, and whenever he was teaching Islam and she would pass by, he would always show respect to her as if she was his mother. So Sister Halima, the witness of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, was a woman of Ethiopian heritage. Okay, final move. This one. For some reason, and at the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the actual midwife of the mother of the Prophet ﷺ, was a sister Ayman. She was the midwife that helped to deliver Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when he was a baby. And it was not only when he was made an orphan, Ayman, may Allah be pleased with her, was they used to call her the foster mother of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So, and she was a woman of East African heritage, and she was looked upon as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as a foster mother of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. So she was referred to as Barakah. She was not only the foster mother, but the right hand of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Mother Amina. And she took care of baby Prophet Muhammad ﷺ when his mother passed away. We normally hear stories about Sister Samaya, may Allah be pleased with her, who was one of the first companions to be killed. And according to historians of Islam, she was of East African heritage as well. So I'll put here the first Islamophobic death. Now, one of the oldest Islamic universities in Africa is Al-Qurain, based in North Africa. And the founder of it was a sister called Fatima. And this is one of the oldest degree granting universities in the world today. And she got the money through her father's, when her father passed away, and she inherited the money. And from the money that she inherited, she donated some to be used for a mosque. And this place is still standing today. And it's in the Guinness Book of World Records, recognized as the oldest continuously operating institution of higher education in the world. Dr. Garike Chengu, a scholar from Harvard University, has done much work on this and the work of Fatima and her founding of this university. And as we all know, the Moors who conquered Spain were predominantly from North Africa, and her sister, called Maryam, with her portion of her inheritance, she financed the Grand Mosque of Andalusia. Okay. Now, we always hear about Timbuktu, about the great scholars of Islam, the Islamic scholarship that came from Timbuktu, but many people are not aware that Timbuktu in the 12th century was founded by a Tuareg West African nomadic woman, and her name was Timbuktu. So later on it became Buktu, then Timbuktu in Mali. Now, many people are not aware that in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, many East Africans traveled to India. Now, India at that time wasn't just India today, it was India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. They were all one country before they got partitioned in the mid to late 40s. And basically there were some queens, some of the Africans, when they went there, they never go there as they weren't just slaves, that's what we normally hear, but many went as dignitaries, many went as civil servants, many helped as administrators and helpers with the various royal families in the Indian subcontinent. And these are 4 African Muslim queens who ruled certain parts of India. So Queen Meher Leki Begum, Queen Yasmin Mahal, Queen Afroz Mahal, and Queen Bamaba Mullah. Now there's a book called The African Diaspora in India. There's a book here, and there's a historian from France called Sylviane Diouf, and she's done extensive work and research called Africans in India. So if you could ever find and Google her, her name is Sylviane Diouf. There was a East African woman's spiritualist who operated in Ethiopia, and she was known to be a person who can challenge jinns and deals with exorcism. And she became famous in East Africa because there was a lot of trade that was done between East Africa and India at the time. Her fame was known around India. So she was asked to come to India to help certain dignitaries deal with their jinn problems. Her name is Maya Misra. So they paid for her to come to India and to help certain dignitaries deal with certain jinn problems. And she was always known for her reputation of helping to deter jinns from troubling people. She was very good at exorcism. And there's a book written called Devotional Practices of Pakistan and India by Shamim Birni Abba. And it's page 37, where they talk about her works, her exploits, and how she was very good at her work. And when she passed away, they built a special shrine for her in India. And that shrine is still there today. There was also an African princess warrior of India. Her name was Begum Hazrat Mahal. And she was a politician and one of the youngest queens of Nawab in India. And she was a consistent freedom fighter who made major contributions in the 19th century War of Independence in India. So this was an article written about her in the Hindustan Times and the Indian Express. Now, there was the last king of India, and his name was Sultan Wajid Ali Shah. And he was known as the last king of India, but what was relevant about him is that he only traveled outside of his room, much less house, with African women bodyguards. African women were his bodyguards, were his advisors, and he only had African women around him because he never really trusted many people from his own kind. So he trusted African women, and he had African women soldiers who fought with them, and they dressed in red jackets and tight-fitting rose-colored silk trousers. And there was a book called The Last King of India, Wajid Ali Shah, by British historian Rosie Llewellyn-Jones, where she talks about these African Muslim women, bodyguards and advisors and dignitaries that were around him that he trusted more than his own people. Now, back to Africa. In northern Nigeria, there was a warrior queen called Amina. So she was commonly known as the warrior queen, Queen Amina of Zaria. And she was the first woman to become a queen of a male-dominated society. So normally we hear the stereotype that within African traditions, women can't do anything. But she was a queen in the North Nigerian society. Anyone who's been to Nigeria, like I have, because my wife's from Nigeria, knows that the North is very male-dominated. So she was a queen, and this was in the 16th century. And she fought many wars, she fought many battles, and she was a very dominant figure in northern Nigeria. And because some of her stories and some of her exploits have come to light, they're now making a Disney film about her and starring Lupita. That should be coming soon, inshallah. Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica. Now, as someone of Jamaican heritage, this lady, Nanny of the Maroons, is a legend because she was a queen in West African Ghana. And no, she was a princess, pardon me. She was a princess in West African Ghana. And she was taken into slavery by the Spanish with her brother Kojo, who was a prince. And when they were tricked into slavery and taken into slavery, they were sent to Jamaica. And this is when the Spanish used to control Jamaica. And then what happened was, even though she was in slavery, there was still a different way that the royal family members were treated. So they were still treated very favorably by the Spanish slave traders. And what happened was when Britain came to take over, fought with the Spanish over Jamaica, and Britain won, there was a bit of a crossover happening in Jamaica. So when the Spanish were chased out, a lot of the plantations were in limbo. And Nanny, because she was still known to be a princess, she led a group of slaves to run away because there was so much confusion happening, and they set up a camp in a place called Trelawney, which is near where my father's from. Trelawney, and that's a place where, for those that don't know, Usain Bolt, where he's from, they set up a camp there. And what she done was, her and her brother, they trained up those slaves and they became warriors. And what they used to do, they used to go around Jamaica and free slaves. They used to go to certain places where slavery was rampant, and in military style, they used to assassinate and decimate the slave owners and free the slaves, then train up those people, make them part of their army. Now, they became so strong and dominant at one point. The royal family at this time in the UK, because they wanted to keep Jamaica as a colony, they made a treaty with Nanny of the Maroons. They said, please, we'll give you your own land. Just let us do what we do, you do what you do, and we'll leave you alone. So they get them a separate country within Jamaica. So for those that don't know, within Jamaica, there's a place called Maroon Land, which is a separate country inside Jamaica. They've got their own money, everything. And recently, when I went to Jamaica to see my parents, the government was trying to tax, the Jamaican government were trying to tax this village, a Maroon Town. And the Maroon Town, they brought out on TV the agreement they made with the British royal family a few hundred years ago. Said, no, you can't tax us because we've got this agreement with the royal family of Britain. You cannot tax us. This contract is indefinite. And the reason why we have a Bengali sister in the picture as well, Dr. Afros, we met her, she came to the UK 13 years ago, and we met with her. She's doing some extensive research in Jamaica to show and demonstrate that Nanny was a Muslim woman. And basically there's proof and evidence to say that she used to indulge in Islamic practices before she used to go into battle, and she was a practicing Muslim. And when she first came out with her claims, many people thought she was, nah, this woman's going too far, she's crazy. I even used to hear a lot of Jamaican Muslims say, nah, it's not true. But then she came up with a lot of documented evidence and proofs to prove that Nanny of the Maroons was a Jamaican Muslim woman. Scholar and sage, Nana Asma'u from Nigeria. She's the daughter of Uthman Dan Fodio. She wasn't only the daughter and treated like a princess in Nigeria, she was a scholar of Islam as well as a poet. And what was great about her, she used to issue fatwas in Nigerian society. And most of it used to be oral, and then it used to be passed around orally. And she caused a big hoo-ha because she made a fatwa saying, if your husband is not teaching you Islam and you want to go out and you want to learn Islam, you have every right to walk out of your house to come and study Islam. So she was a great advocate for women gaining spiritual education and uplifting themselves. And people normally just mention Nana Asma'u, but there are many other brilliant West African women scholars like Sheikha Hani Al-Fulani, Sister Asma'u bint Uthman Bifudi, and Mariam bint Uthman Dan Fodio. So most of these scholars, they're all somehow related to Nana Asma'u too. Sports and activism. Many people are not aware, there was up to a few years ago, wearing the hijab and playing basketball in professional basketball for women especially was banned. And these two sisters, Sister Bilkisu Abdul Kadir from America, Massachusetts, and Sister Asma Al-Badawi from Bradford, but she's in London a lot, so she's half Bradford, half London. They're very good, gifted basketball players, and they were on the verge of going professional. But because of this hijab ban, they couldn't go professional. So through social media, they connected, and then they both came together to challenge the Female International Basketball Association to overturn the ban. And that this activism this campaign took around 2 years for them to actually do. So because of sisters like these, Sister Bilkisu and Sister Asma, sisters with hijab can now play professional basketball. The interrupter, Sister Amina Matthews. She's a gang intervention worker. She was a former gang member, and then she later started up her own social enterprise called Pause for Peace, where she challenged gangsterism, gang crime in her community. And she does a lot of community work in Southside Chicago. Anyone who's ever been to Chicago will know many of the taxi drivers don't go to Southside Chicago after 6 o'clock. I tried to go, it was on 6:30, I tried to get this, a few taxis to take me there, and they refused. And what they done was they took me to the Asian part of Chicago and dropped me in the mosque. So this part of Chicago is known to be very dangerous, but Sister Amina Matthew does a lot of her community work there. Because of her community work and because of her good reputation, she's now running for Congress in 2020 for the Democrat Party. Also in activism, Sister Marguerite Aziza Hill. She's a professor and a blogger, and she started up something, she's the managing director of the Muslim Arc. It's a Muslim anti-racism collaboration organization that promotes and advocates for women's getting education and women fighting for their rights. And she's very active on social media. Other community activist is Sister Hind Maki, a second-generation Sudanese sister who works as an interfaith educator and organizer for the East African Muslim community in Chicago. A warrior for the cause. This sister used to work with me. So this is Sister Zakia Hussein Ahmed. She's of Somalian heritage. She was born in Denmark, in Scandinavia, and then she came to the UK around 20 years ago. So she used to be very active in community work in West London. But because she was very passionate about empowering Somali youths and communities and women, Somali sisters in communities, her work is known all around England. And she's known in Manchester. I've been to Manchester, Leicester, Wales. Everyone knows this sister within the Somali community. She's very passionate about raising the standard of Somalia, whereby she had opportunities to do some work with the British government in challenging issues within the Somali community, but because someone from the Somali government saw her, met with her, spoke to her, they said, no, you need to come to Somalia. So now she's the most senior female police officer in Somalia in history. So she's the highest ever ranking women police officer in history. Sister Zakia Hussein. Right. We remember there was a slogan a few years ago called was it the Niger? There was when some girls got
Bring back our girls.
Once again?
Bring back our girls.
Thank you so much. There was a campaign called Bring Back Our Girls. Thank you, Sister Bilkisu. You saved the day there. And there was when a group of sisters from Nigeria were kidnapped by Boko Haram. Now, many of us were thinking that no one was doing nothing. Now, because Sister Aisha here, some of her family members have been kidnapped by Boko Haram. She used to catch ants. But now what she does is she hunts Boko Haram. So Boko Haram soldiers are scared of this woman here because she hunts Boko Haram for trying to kidnap and mistreat women. And she hunts them down, she shoots them down, and she deals with them. She deals with them. That's what I'm going to say, no more. And also a pioneer advocate, Sister Bilkisu Yusuf. She's a journalist, a professor, an academic from Nigeria. Also a scholar of today, Sister Isha Prime from America. And she's based in Washington, DC. And she's part of the Women's March. And she does a lot of advocacy work for women in education and empowering Muslim sisters in America. This sister's from the UK. But now she got married and she moved to America. So Sister Rukeya Madupe Yaku, she's of Nigerian parentage. She came and so basically she went to West Africa, Mauritania to study Islam. and she's a graduate of various Mauritanian Islamic institutions, as well as being a teacher and an author. She started up her own publishing company, the Light Legacy Books, to Sister Rakaya Mudupe. So basically now she does come to the UK at least once or twice a year. We have Sister Amina Wadood, who's an academic. And then we have Sister Adila Shabazz, a sister from the Caribbean. She came to the UK when she was 4, and she became involved growing up in South London. She became involved in a lot of community work in the Black community before she embraced Islam. And she was very much an advocate for education, for personal development. And then when she embraced Islam, she was very dismayed by seeing the ill treatment of women, especially Black Muslim women. And she made her home, her actual home where she lives, into a hub for where Black Muslim women could come to if they were going through any issues, if they felt discrimination in the mosque or from any organization, going through domestic violence issues. And she made her home a hub. And she's also a chaplain, and she's the co-founder of the Muslim Women's Helpline. And she's still working now. Now she's doing humanitarian work in Africa. An academic, Sister Muna Abdi. She's a lecturer and researcher with Sheffield University. Recently she's left. She's become a consultant now, education consultant in Sheffield. And she's an advocate in promoting education for young people of African and Afro-Caribbean heritage in Sheffield. The MCB, the Muslim Council of Britain, our sister Rashida Hassan, she has a senior role within, she's the Assistant Secretary General, and she's a senior role with the MCB, and she works to build bridges between the MCB and the Black African and Afro-Caribbean Muslim community, and she's doing a lot of hard work with MCB.
Ismael, conscious of time,
yes.
Just that we probably have to wrap up in the next minute or two just to try and get some questions in, hopefully.
Okay, can I have 2 minutes and that's it, 2 minutes?
Okay, that's fine, inshallah.
All right, 2 minutes. We have sisters who are filmmakers, Sister Naima Nortley, Sister Nijila Basima Mu'min, Sister Ifra Mansour. These are independent filmmakers from the UK, America, and Canada. And then we have our poetic sisters, Misunderstood from New York, Poetic Pilgrimage from the UK, Bristol, Pearls of Islam from London. And for those that don't know, one of Beyonce's albums were inspired by the poetry of Sister Wasan Shar from Wembley. Yeah. And then a health advocate, Sister Aisha Hassan, based in Birmingham, who she deals with immunology. And our sisters in politics, Ilan Omar from America, Sister Tanzila Kambrani, she's an MP in Pakistan from the African Muslim region, and Sister Fadema Hassan helped Jeremy Corbyn with his campaign. And this is showing solidarity, where we see when when a lady was in, Angela Davis was going for a court case. This is a picture taken in solidarity in Somalia. Thank you very much, sister, for your patience. Apologies if I went over.
Jazakallah khair, Ismael, for that. Thank you so much.
That's okay.
That's really inspirational and amazing, taking us through the ages from past, present to future, yes. In terms of all these women, and the fact that you've covered pretty much, if not all, most of the continents, with America and Asia and the Black heritage there. And for myself, as just the fact that Nigerians are covered as a Northern Nigerian, always, of course, some bias there, so lovely to see that represented as well. So Jazakallah khair for that. That's really amazing. And the fact that you talked about the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's African kind of, I guess, not heritage per se, but the fact that he had African women raising him.
Yes.
So that just kind of leads to my question, the sense of, why do you think there's a lot of erasure when it comes to Black history, especially when it comes to Islamic history, where we know all about Bilal, but when it comes to any other Black figures, if it's Umar radiallahu anha, or, you know, as you mentioned, Halima, why is there erasure there? Why is that not discussed or brought to the forefront?
My opinion is that the racism that was rampant in European society crept in to Arabia and Asia from I would say, after the Spanish Inquisition. So I would say in the 15th century. So from the 15th century, I believe that a lot of the hatred, the demonization, the dehumanization of African people that was happening in Europe spilled over into Asia and to the Arabian subcontinent.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And just kind of going back to the fact that you've dedicated this presentation to your daughter and your wife and to other Black Muslim women, what kind of inspired you to do this presentation?
What happened was I met some Black Muslims because what it was, I knew about some of these sisters because my brother, who was looking into Islam, we used to live together. So I used to see some of these people in books by Dr. Ivan van Sertima. So I met some Muslim sisters and they were saying, oh, I'm Black, I'm not good looking, I'm this, I'm that. And they were very downbeat about themselves. And I was very concerned. And then what it is, my wife, she gets a lot of calls from sisters who call her, say, can your husband help me find a husband, please? Can your husband help me find a husband, please? Oh, no one wants to marry me. No one wants to. And I was thinking, what's going on? I said, look, there's loads of Black brothers out here that want to get married to Blacks. They're telling me they can't find Black sisters. So then when we introduced them to some Black brothers who want to get married to Black sisters, they're like in shock. Oh my God. So I'm thinking, where does this come from? So then I believe personally, this is my opinion, which might be a bit controversial, a lot of these so-called Asian Arab organizations, okay, they've inherited unconscious bias, discrimination, and racism from the Eurocentric society. So whereby in the UK, they try to promote themselves as the only Muslims. And so we have in mainstream society, we have Eurocentric supremacy that's pushed in the media, in society, but among the Muslims, they're pushing an Asianist, Arabish agenda, trying to dehumanize and discriminate against Black Muslims.
Thanks, Ismael, for that. And I guess what you touched upon, it does go back a lot to colonialism and that interaction with the West, because I've often had these conversations with various people and just kind of thinking about the example of France, where just across the pond, it's very different, where the majority of Muslims there are North African and African. So it's very clear that Muslims, the narrative there is that Muslims are Black and Muslims are from North Africa as well, since people like to separate the two often in discourse. But so again, it just goes back to that history with colonialism, the fact that it has ended up kind of separating the two. So hopefully, inshallah, with presentations like yours and continuing the conversation, inshallah, that bridge can be that bridge can be made, and that gap can be closed, inshallah, and those conversations can continue. So I think we'll end it there, just conscious of time and Maghrib, and we're kind of running over. So again, I wanted to thank you again, Ismael, for that really insightful presentation. Thank you to everyone for joining us. I'm sure everyone's learned so much. And again, if you're interested in finding out more about Ismael's work and other presentations that his project does, the Salam Project, please check them out on Instagram at the Salam Project, and also on their website. Again, we'll share details on our Instagram page, which is at Amalgam Network on Instagram. So feel free again to follow all of Ismael's work there, inshallah. So inshallah, you can join us next week as well for our conversation with Naima B. Robert on Black Muslim women, our history, our narrative. Details are on Eventbrite if you want to book. So again, Jazakallah khair, everybody, for joining us. And thank you again, Ismael, for taking the time out to inform.
Thank you very much. Remember us in your du'as, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.